Hey guys. Thanks so much for listening to our talk. Marguerite here with Kyle. We launched Blockade Games in 2018. Blockade Games is an NFT game company. It's funny now that we say NFT games because it used to be like blockchain game, crypto gaming, and now we've gone full tilt to NFT games. You might know us from a few of our different titles. One of them is Plasma Bears, was the first free-to-play blockchain game, started in 2018, 2019, and then Neon District, which is a cyberpunk RPG. So we're going to get into a little bit of the background of how we have landed where we are today with composable dynamic NFTs in this RPG landscape and how it works and how we've designed the different pipelines and made some developer choices. So I'm going to let Kyle go ahead and step in.
First question.
I think it just works. Try it.
It just works. Ah, that's convenient, especially when you're on stage. Okay, yeah, so, so Marguerite and myself, we've been working on blockchain games for quite a while now. And yeah, I don't know where the particular kind of grounding is here in terms of this talk, but we'll just go through and have a bit of a discussion on some of the projects that we previously worked on and also our flagship project, Neon District. So basically, I hope so. I don't think so.
Can you see Plasma Bears?
No one can see it. That's
Wait, yeah.
Oh,
there
we go. Check that out. Wow. Okay. So, Marguerite came to me in 2018 and was like, I want GIFs of bears, and I want them as NFTs. And the first thing that sprung into my mind is, technically, that is an awful idea. But from a fun game design aspect, it kind of seemed pretty novel and cool, so I accepted her offer. And also, it was very convenient that previously I'd just come off of a project for a cryptocurrency project called Decred, and we'd basically transferred or migrated their whole visual design system into an emotion library, which exists on Lottie files. And basically, Lottie was the backbone for Plasma Bears. So it was very convenient. It all happened at just the right time. And yeah, so we made a game called Plasma Bears, which was very hacky, but it demonstrated a few really, really core things at the time. So it was correct me if I'm wrong, Marguerite, but it was the first game with composable NFTs.
First game, free-to-play blockchain game with composable, and it wasn't enough, right, just to have these bears as one NFT. I wanted a crafting system for the NFTs where people could have a build-a-bear type experience and then take these bears out on quests, collect other bear parts that allowed them to play more difficult quests in the text adventure format, come back, build better bears, and these bear pieces all had independently animated skins. So you could have a blend of different types of skins and not just one completed look. So anyways, we wanted to do this, and like I said, it also be free to play. So we were experiencing quite a bit of technical hurdles in that process, one of which was how do we have a web app render these skins and the bears all in real time without loading the web page.
Yeah, so we'll just pop through a few slides that kind of demonstrates it a bit more visually. So yeah, essentially it was this web app that you had all of these bears that had numerous emotes, like movements, depending on their emotion. So they had these various types of data that was associated with them. Yeah, don't need to see that, but yeah, this is probably the most important one here. So the one on the left is an example of all the different, I guess, components of that bear. So the arm, the head, the body, and the legs, these were all NFTs that could be owned and traded, and yeah, and basically kind of formed the basis for the game. And the one on the right was an example. There was a kit put together and put out to the community to basically encourage people to make their own bears. Yeah, so that's a bit of a background to that. Marguerite, go into this is quite a story in itself.
Sure. The short version of the story is with that proof of concept that we built with this free-to-play blockchain game, we never meant to provide full support for it for long term. We were just trying to put together this experience to inform the larger game we were building, which is called Neon District. So at the time, this game was built on what's called Loom Network, and Loom Network was a layer 2 type solution for Ethereum back at this in 2017, 20, and 2018. But eventually, Loom Network pivoted their business model and shut down these networks that they were providing, one of which Plasma Bears was built on. And when that happened, all of these bears, there were probably millions of bears, were lost. But one thing we had done at the time was built a transfer gateway. So we were the first layer 2 game where with the transfer gateway, players had, when they wanted to, opted to spend a small amount of money of gas to transfer their bears over to the Ethereum mainnet. So prior to this year, these assets sold for fractions of a penny in some cases because they were thought of worthless because there were millions of bears over on the Loom network. Well, anyways, people thought I get a call from Gary Vee at 11:30 at night, and he wants to hear this whole story about plasma bears. And they've discovered this relic NFT, and now people that transferred their bears over to the mainnet Ethereum saw this incredible return on profit, which was a surprise to everybody. And then we, of course, had a ton of inbound of people asking us when we were going to build Plasma Bears 2.0. But anyways, from this point, we go on to build our other product.
Yeah, the experience that we had from Plasma Bears really informed the way that we were going to compose our characters in Neon District, because very early on in Neon District's development, the characters looked incredibly impressive, but it just wasn't going to scale in the way that we required in order to kind of design a flagship title, which Neon District is. To give a visual example of what Neon District is, so this is the kind of setup that we have in Neon District. This is from the prior version, but we have a very good visual example here where you have a team of players which fight against another team of players, which are all equipped with pieces of gear that are represented as NFTs and have the properties of NFTs that can be traded and all of that kind of stuff. It's a game that has card elements, so each piece of gear, weapon, for example, will have various cards which are drawn between turns, basically. Yeah, so it's a cyberpunk, roguelike, dungeon crawling, deck building, role-playing game, which is also play to earn, alike Plasma Bears. It's quite a mouthful, but essentially that's what it is. And here are some comparable examples, some of which are in different genres, but these are the kind of games that influenced our production on Neon District. Yeah, so it's a cyberpunk game, so we're thinking like Neuromancer, kind of like bulky headsets, the metaverse, the kind of things that have really, really inspired, those of us here that work on, Ethereum applications. So yeah, it's very much, using the tropes and kind of giving our own little spin on it. Yeah, so we have a game world. This is a kind of overall example of the world that we're building here. Very, very sci-fi, very, very high-tech existence, and hundreds of years in the future. Okay, so in the game we have a few key resources that are not there. Oh, they are now. Hello. Okay, so we have an item called juice, which is used to level up characters. We have parts, which are used to level up weapons. And we have an in-game currency, which isn't a token, but can be bought with Ethereum, called Neon. And that's what the ATM there represents. Characters. So alike, comparable to the Plasma Bears example that we viewed earlier, these are the allocations for what we kind of divvy up the character into and represent as NFTs. So you can have a head NFT, you can have the arm NFT, and you can have leg NFT. So this is a crude example, but this is where the armor allocations are. So you can have, flare pants or whatever for your character, and that would be a leg component. So yeah, very early on we had a lot of fun. So this was our visual representation of Satoshi Sakamoto, as we like to call him, her, they. And yeah, we brought it to life. And yeah, a bit of technical background. Everything's divided into parts and animated on this kind of like character thing.
Well, one important note is that we have hundreds of different styles and designs for these characters, and each character has hundreds of designs, and that will go on seasonally. We'll have additional loot boxes, and some of them will be scarce. But what that means is that what we do with our production, we have to streamline this process and ways to check and make sure that nothing breaks the animations. So when we're showing all the individual pieces, it's actually pretty complicated to come up with these rigs, multiple different character class rigs that wear all kinds of different looks and that we can plug and play in our system in an internal UI tool that we provide for our designers.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because the reason why this is as basic as it is because, you know, in previous iterations we had like changeable shoes, and we realized that if this is a game that will eventually have tens of thousands of different parts, let alone combinations, to have a complex system just wasn't feasible. Yep, so this is shells. So you know, building a game like Neon District, you learn things, and we had shells, which are quite a coveted set of NFTs in our community because they have an influence on the game, and it was quite overpowered. So we've used the technology that we built for this to inform the way that we deal with the skins, so the different cosmetic changes in armor. But yeah, when you make a game like this, you learn a lot, and you just iterate and deal with those issues.
Well, with shells also, we had to redesign them from the Generation Zero assets, which is what they were, became outdated. And so they had to be redesigned for the current system. But in addition to that, we have our smart contracts that come with them that permanently binds them to those Season 1 assets, which also informs some choices we made for our smart contracts for our skins pipeline, which is coming up.
I feel we might have lost a few people on that one, but more will become clear as we move forward. So in Rarities, it being a cyberpunk game, we kind of worked around the principle of degradation. So there are five different rarities in Neon District, the bottom being the legendary and the top being the common. So yeah, that's basically, we have different, I guess, different types of, that's the way that we showed it visually. We did in the past have like this different colors on the weapons, but we found it to be too problematic. So over time, we did move towards the system. Also, a legendary weapon should look legendary. Weapon classes. So as we were saying, this had to scale, and if you have weapons of multiple different lengths, dimensions, things get really, really messy. So we standardized the way in which weapons are held and the points of which they fire from in order to maintain continuity. Skins, yep. So this is commonplace in video games. Skins are a very, very highly monetizable element of a game. So yeah, this is just an example here. We have the bottom being the base weapon, which is kind of like a pretty plain, and then the top is an example of a skin. So this is something, a unique NFT that is binded to the bottom to have a cosmetic change in battle.
I think it's worth noting that with the skins, like this technology we're talking about, there's no other application that is exploring this sort of function and utility. The ability of being able to use skins as an NFT, and even down to the idea of NFT stickers, where you can work with major brands to use stickers on your assets. So I'm excited about this particular feature because it allows players to have more customization, including that crafting experience with the composable characters, to now be more granular and be able to have these little details that they personally apply to their assets.
Okay, so how do people interact with this? So this is very, very early on in Neon District's production. So initially, Neon District was designed as a game that you would be able to, at one point we were thinking even Nintendo Switch. So it was supposed to be downloaded through one of the many different clients out there, and really just designed to be interacted through a console or a very, very rigid delivery. But essentially, over time, we kind of realized that players would want to interact with these assets in a load of different ways. They weren't playing the game the way we thought that they would. So we've gone from this kind of design that you see here. I mean, there's some description below. Yeah, we realized that it really wasn't going to scale when you had players that had tens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of unique characters, all with these NFTs attached to them. Yeah, so we took inspiration. I'm a big XCOM fan, so this is a screenshot from XCOM. So we had like this map. So arguably, you could say that Neon District is the key character in Neon District. The world itself is, is what people come to the game for. They want to live in that world and explore all of its faults. Yeah, so this is a very early example of that dashboard interface. So we do at the moment, give it a couple of weeks, and we'll be in a position to share what that interface does look like. But yeah, we really wanted to showcase the world that we've poured our heart and souls basically into over the past 2 to 3 years. So yeah, look into environments, arenas. So it's a game where people battle each other. So we have a load of different arenas based around the numerous sectors of the game world. We're really leaning on the fact that we're going to have players that engage in player versus player combat in a variety of different environments.
I think it's important to note that early on, as a team, we went to GDC in 2018, and we learned that it was not a good choice to launch with PvP right out of the gates, because we wouldn't have a player base to populate for those matches. So we then originally were exploring PvE, and eventually we came to passive PvP, which we currently have, which we're leading up to active PvP with these arenas. And a lot of that is just strategically, you need to have a wide player base to have a really fun active PvP experience.
So basically, one of the main monetization aspects of many of the games that exist out there, you can take, I guess, you hear the word loot crates, and sometimes it makes certain people shudder, but it is the main way that many of the biggest titles out there are monetized. And Neon District works in a similar way, but in a play-to-earn context, meaning that players can earn in-game currency and use it to buy loot crates, in which they essentially get assets that they can equip their characters with, engaging in the gameplay that exists there, or they can trade openly on the marketplace. So basically, the way of distributing those assets in the game is done through loot crates. And soon, we're going to introduce a cadence of special events or special crates that have unique assets in. And the first of which is going to be called End of Days, named after a particular undisclosed location within the game world. And we have some very interesting items that are coming through. These are 2 of the 18 that we will be releasing through that particular crate. And the crates look like this. They are themed in the game world, and yeah, we look forward to introducing this particular crate in the first quarter of next year. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm not sure if we...
No, they came. We're
I'm
good?
pretty sure this is a wrap-up.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, this is your outro, Marguerite.
Yeah, so actually we're preparing to launch our version 2. So in January this year, and late January, we launched the MVP, which was a model to show that we could have the free-to-play game experience where strategy was allowing players that have never spent money in game to compete at the top of the leaderboard with players who have spent money in game. And once we did prove out that model is true, now we are taking time after a UI UX audit that we did over spring and summer, and we're dropping our V2, which is expansive of new features that are coming and within the next month, in addition to this new loot crate and new assets, which introduce scarcity into our model. And our player base, we have 160,000 unique asset owners. So we're really excited to lean into our PvP active gameplay development on the other side of that. So
I was going to say, don't be a stranger. If you have any questions about the project, please feel free to kind of ask questions, and we'll be happy to talk a bit more about Neon District. But anyway, I think that is us wrapping up. So thank you, and everyone have a brilliant time here.